Oh my gosh, I didn't even think about doing an intro.
Oh, that's okay.
I didn't think to write anything like, "Hey, this is Toni. She's from Alpha Coding Experts." I just like assumed everyone knows who you are. Like I
I mean,
assume
of course they
your
do.
fan base is my fan base, and my fan base is your fan base. I talked to you guys about being an overnight success in medical coding, but what about becoming an absolute expert? What does it take to become a subject matter expert in medical coding? Let me introduce you to my friend Toni Elhoms. This is the woman to watch. She does inpatient coding, outpatient coding, reimbursement. She works with lawyers. I mean, it's phenomenal. If you're not listening to the Alpha Coding Experts podcast, you have to subscribe because it is phenomenal information that she's giving away for free. Let's get into it and talk to Toni. So I'm here today to interview Toni Elhoms. Toni Elhoms is an amazing podcaster and expert in the medical coding, HIM, health information technology field. She does a lot of great things, presentations, has spoken globally. Amazing, amazing person. I'm so excited to have Toni here today on the YouTube channel. So I want to start out, Toni, with a lot of coders know you as being this top medical coding podcaster, and they've commented, I want to be Toni Elhoms. I want to be you. I want to do what you do. Can you give us a little bit of an overview of exactly what it is that you do?
Sure. And I'm super excited to be here, Victoria. I love your content. It's seriously amazing. So, thank you for sharing your audience with me. As far as what I do, it's not glamorous. It's a lot of work. So, first and foremost, I'm an entrepreneur. So I'm actually less than the 1% in the coding profession. There are not many entrepreneurs. So basically, I do a combination of consulting work. So I spend about 70% of my time working directly with physicians, hospitals, insurance companies on the business of medicine. And then the other 30%, I am an expert witness. So think Law and Order, but I'm sitting in the witness box, basically testifying about different matters related to medical coding, compliance, reimbursement. So that's basically what I do in a nutshell.
Okay. And I understand a little bit that you also work with others that are looking or have kind of a team of people working with you in coaching and consulting and the legal sector and that. So that sounds really impressive. And when you were starting out, did you ever anticipate that you would kind of be where you are right now?
Yeah, so Alpha Coding Experts is my company. I do have a team of experts. And basically, my goal is to help as many people break into the industry and kind of navigate the waters of all of the opportunities that are available to people with this type of expertise. I always knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I had no idea how I would actually get there to do it. And medical coding is not something that's advertised in school. Like I've never heard about this field. And I feel like people like me and you can help raise awareness, especially with the pandemic and like all of these new people that are looking for jobs.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely some new niches that are coming into medical coding that we've been involved with that maybe haven't been in the past, things like podcasting, things like YouTubing. And I've noticed even that there's been interest from programmers that they come in and they're like, oh, coding. And they don't even understand that when we say medical coding, that it's not like a programming language. It's not like programming in JavaScript or SQL or anything like that, that it's not a programming language. And I'm even starting to see an increase of nurses now that are starting to get into medical coding. That is because of what happened with the pandemic. They are not wanting to be patient facing anymore. And they're looking into some things that they can utilize their skills in healthcare without having to be patient facing anymore. Or sometimes that just happens because they've had, an injury or something that they can't, lift patients or work in that kind of environment anymore. So yeah, there's definitely been some interest from different sectors now as we're raising awareness in medical coding. So you've certainly have to stay on top of things. When you're an expert, there's a lot of changes going on, health insurances, medical coding guidelines, compliance regulations in what you do, where you have to be like at your top game because you're providing consulting services and working with lawyers. How do you stay on top of all of those as an expert and a business owner?
It's really difficult. Being a coding and compliance expert is like its own full-time job to stay immersed in the changes. I literally read from the time I get up in the morning until the time I go to bed. I'm always reading articles. I'm always consuming content. I'm always looking at different state legislations and things that are happening, on the congressional front, because those types of policies have a big impact on what we do. So reading is a huge, huge part of our life. And I know that you can relate to that. It's literally, you're a lifelong learner when you get into this field. I also spend every single week, I'm really intentional about connecting with industry experts and folks that are in the field that are in different niches in different areas, because I want to stay fresh and up to date on kind of what the trends are in different areas. And so I always kind of have a pulse on that. And then of course, social media and just having access to these resources is so incredible. Like I remember, I'm sure you can relate to this, back in 2009 when I was studying for my CPC, it was like, I wish that I had like a Facebook group. I wish I had like these TikTok mini videos and like all of this amazing stuff that you can get plugged into now that we didn't have back then. I remember, Victoria, you totally remember this. Like all we had were these like archaic AAPC forums. Like there was nothing else. And it was just like random like people that were posting and not everybody knew about it. Like having access to these types of networks and information, like you have no reason not to stay on top of things, no reason not to be successful other than lack of enough time to consume all of it.
Yeah. And I think we're both on the same page that it gets so overwhelming sometimes and very confusing for new coders because they see all of this information's out there and they don't know how to interpret which ones are the ones that are compliant, which are our gold standards, and which are just, someone in Kentucky posted on the forum and said that she bills it this way all the time and it always gets paid. And, there's definitely, even as you progress and look at this information, you have to really be able to dissect it and understand that that person who's coding in Kentucky and you're in California might have different insurance regulations in that area. There might be different Medicare regulations. There might be different scope of practice in that area. So it's great that we have these floodgates that have opened, that we have all of this information at our fingertips, but now we have a new problem that we have to kind of figure out. How do we determine what we can and can't actually use?
So true.
So you've certainly inspired a lot of coders through your podcast, through all of your social media things that you've shared. What advice do you have for brand new coders that are either just about to get certified, have just gotten certified, and they're in the industry and they're looking to like catapult themselves to all of a sudden now they're in this expert role? What advice do you have for those people?
I love this question. One of my favorite topics that I talk to other AAPC chapters about is kind of navigating the coding profession. And I really like to spend a lot of time talking to newbie coders because I remember when I first got my certification, I was trying to navigate things and it was just like so overwhelming and you just didn't really see the big picture. And so I would say one of the biggest catalysts to my success was always taking on new opportunities, new projects. And I say this because I very often did not get paid for this additional work or this additional responsibility. When I first started out in coding, I made $8 an hour. $8 an hour. It was a lot of money back then. But as I progressively worked up the career ladder, and the pay scale, I mean, my pay never matched all of the things that I wanted to take on. And I would volunteer to cross train with other people. I would, take on these work groups. I would volunteer to do presentations, obviously getting involved with your local chapter. Like seriously, that is the most undervalued resource that so many people don't take advantage of. They think it's just about CEUs, but it's literally this community of people that are there to help you succeed. So take every opportunity you can get in a professional setting and also in a personal setting to grow and to evolve. Because I'll tell you, as an entrepreneur, so much of what I do is figuring things out and just being resourceful. And because I've had to do that so much over my career and adapting to different, roles and areas, that has prepared me for, this phase of my life. And I couldn't have done that if I didn't spend those early years of my career really like putting my head down, like breaking the books open, like coding every specialty, doing so much research. And then I would say networking is a lifestyle. You have to be committed to this. I tell people you need to be meeting with at least 2 to 5 people every week that are in the industry, and not just like, can you be my mentor? That's probably the worst thing you can say to somebody when you're first meeting them. Like, don't say that. Just build a genuine relationship, because relationships are what people do business off of. They hire people that they know, and they do business with people that they know. So when you build relationships and you network with people, you're positioning yourself for when that time is right. Don't come into it with an agenda or an ask for somebody right away, because that comes off just super shady. And so you don't want to be that person. And then I would say, lastly, personal development. You need to be addicted to your own success. Nobody's going to tell you to do this. Nobody's going to, force you to do this. I actually, when I was a coding director, I required every single one of my coders, my billers, my auditors, every week they had to do personal development. And I remember I got so much flack from my boss, because they're like, you're not getting paid for this work. Like, why would you allow your department to do this? And it's like, I don't care. If my people are not growing, then they're not going to be as valuable to the company and to me.
Right.
So I need them to constantly immerse themselves in this, but you're not always going to have that. And so every day I spend at least 20 minutes, no matter what, if it's video, if it's a book, consuming personal development content like Gary Vee and, Les Brown and Tony Robbins. And like, there's so many out there. You need to be making that your business. Like, that's part of your job.
Yeah, and that's so funny, because I was actually, one of the goals I'm trying to set for myself is to make some time where I am just off of social media. So I started buying puzzles to put together. But as I'm putting them together, I realized, oh, well, you know what? I have plenty of audiobooks I can listen to while I'm doing this. So I was listening to one of Gary Vee's books while I was trying to put together some puzzles and give myself some non-social media distance time. But yeah, I think it's what you said was absolutely fantastic, and definitely new coders need to be kind to themselves and not set up such strict deadlines that it's like, you know what, I have to be an auditor in 2 years, and if I'm not an auditor in 2 years, then I'm a failure. You have to understand that this is something to build up to. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly.
As they say. Yeah. So I've heard a lot of comments on social media platforms that medical coding is boring, that this is a boring thing that we do, and that they can't imagine that anyone would have a medical coding podcast or YouTube or social media presence, because it's just such a boring thing. But your podcast has really been praised for being very engaging. So how is it that you're able to come up with these engaging topics every single week?
I always laugh when I hear these types of comments, because it's like, that's your opinion. The thing about creativity, the thing about being a content creator is that you either have it or you don't. It's not something that you learn. And if you're not a creative person, then that's just not for you. But I mean, you've proven it. I've proven it. There's other people out there that have proven we have a knack for taking the technical and making it fun and digestible and I think that that is a skill in and of itself. And just because that, you know, you don't have it doesn't mean that other people don't. And so I just think that that comment is always just, I don't know, it's really interesting because it's like, okay, there's proof of concept that, you know, medical coding can actually be so much bigger. But I think another really important takeaway is coding is so much bigger than just like looking up codes in a book. Like, think about it. Our public policy, our social policy is literally defined by coding. It's influenced by coding and that data capture. You know, the reason why we're able to track all of this data, we're able to look at addressing social determinants of health is because of coding and coders' roles in educating healthcare professionals about the importance of capturing this data. We influence policy, and people need to understand that it's so much bigger than like taking codes and putting them on a claim form.
Right, right. And a question I've seen come up a lot is people are very curious, you know, if we go on to like a Medicare for All program, they're like, oh, well, the medical coding will go away, won't it? Well, no, because we still need all of that data tracking. Medical coding isn't just for reimbursement. It's so that we can take those deep dives into the data and go, hey, if we have a pool of 100 patients, how many of those patients out of 100 are going to develop diabetes? And then of those diabetic patients, how many of them are going to develop complications, which we track through things like our diagnosis coding? And then how much do these complications cost us on a year? Okay, well, now we know if we're going to have enough money in the federal budget in 5 years' time, because we know how this disease is going to progress. We know how much these progresses are going to cost us. And we know if we have enough money budgeted to pay for all of this patient care. So yeah, medical coding is definitely a lot more than just, we put, like you said, we put it on the claim form and that's the end of it. There's been a lot of surge of comments too lately that medical coding is going to become automated. I get asked this several times a week now, I think, and that it's going to be like transcription, that all the jobs are just pretty much going to go away except for a small section of them, or that we're going to be very greatly reduced. And based off of what you've witnessed in working with lots of different providers and vendors, do you feel that medical coding will be replaced by AI?
Well, first I have to say, I loved your TikTok when you did this. Oh my gosh, that was so funny. If you haven't seen our TikTok, you need to go check it out. I think that there's definitely going to be some jobs that are automated, as they should. Charge entry jobs, like basic, basic coding that can be generated through a charge master. Yeah, those jobs are going to go away. But just like with a physician or any other job that requires any type of human subjectivity, which there's so much of that in coding, just based on the way that things are built and how the code sets, we communicate. So I think it's not going to happen entirely, but this is your opportunity to get with the times, because the people that have been in this industry, when they retire, what got them in those comfy jobs in those positions is not what's going to be the key to the newbies coming in and being able to do the same. The game is changing, and now is the time to position yourself as a subject matter expert and take on these higher roles like auditing and education. And, if you're not into those forward facing roles, like you said about the tech companies, there are all types of, health language companies and tech companies that they have these products that they don't know how to train the products and train the bots. So they leverage coding professionals' expertise. So creating those types of opportunities for yourself and positioning yourself is going to be really important over the next 5 years, because there are going to be changes. There are going to be things that are automated. We're also seeing a big push right now. Pay attention. The AAPC is going global. Like, there's the UAE, there's, India, there's all of these markets that are now really kind of exploding. The AAPC and AHIMA are going global. These are the professional organizations, as you call it, the Coke and Pepsi of medical coding. You need to be following their trends because they're the drivers in this market. there's a lot of pop-up shops that are trying to imitate the AAPC. Good luck. They just passed 200,000 members.
Right.
So I don't think that they're going anywhere. We need to really be mindful of where their focus is and how they're shifting in the market. Part of my job at Alpha Coding is we work with investors and private equity firms, and they often come to us and ask us what we advise as far as good investment opportunities. And that's based on where we see trends in the market. Right now, digital health is hot. Everybody wants to do remote patient monitoring, but nobody knows how to build it, the operational infrastructure and monetization strategy to do that. It's not just go and Google some codes and start doing it. Like, it's actually a lot more complicated than that.
Right.
So I would say AI is definitely going to play a big role, and it's up to you if you're in this industry, if you're in this field, to position yourself for the changes that are coming.
Yeah. And I like that you said that it's definitely going to transform. There are going to be some positions that are going to be eliminated because, yes, I absolutely agree that is going to be true. But if you think about some of the things that AI has come into, okay, transcription is one thing. Things are almost a one-to-one match. It is more of a translation process where you take one word and it translates into these letters, the spoken word. But if we think about some things that are a little bit more subjective, even like bookkeeping, I used to have QuickBooks, and when I was only making $10,000 a year because I had a little side hustle, I was fine with QuickBooks. It could plug into my bank account, pull out my information that I was spending, allocate it appropriately. But as I progressed, I'm like, you know what? I don't trust QuickBooks. I need a bookkeeper. I need an accountant. And I think that's where we're going to start seeing some of the shift. Like, we are going to see some small components that can be automated, but I don't want to get in an event where I'm audited by the federal government and go, well, QuickBooks told me that they could just file everything and it would totally be fine.
Right.
So
Oh
the
my
things that
goodness.
need that more subjective review, that we need someone that has that more advanced knowledge. Yeah, I think that's where medical coding is going as well.
They've already tried to replace coders with EMRs, right? It didn't work.
It didn't
work. So
No.
There you go. There's the proof that it's not going to work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. There's been, I believe, white papers that have been written on that exact subject. So what pro tips do you have for coders that are trying to make sure that they are going to be as marketable as possible and they're going to stay ahead of all of these trends that are upcoming in the industry?
Yes. So pro tip number one, get comfortable being uncomfortable. Like, your box that you've been in, or maybe you're just getting into the industry and you have, this micromanager boss that's, trying to box you in, and you don't feel like you have anything outside of that. You need to step outside of your comfort zone. So if you're in a job like that, you need to be looking for other opportunities. There are plenty of opportunities. The idea that you're going to stay in the same job for 10 years or until retirement, that's a thing of the past. That's not the future. I think the independent contractor market is going to really start to pick up. There's going to be a lot of these like Uber model for coders, I think, that are going to spring up. So get comfortable being uncomfortable, because I think a lot of people in this field, especially vets, they're comfortable. They're very comfortable. And that's not going to be the case over the next 5 years. Pro tip number two, put your ego aside, especially if you're a newer person. I can't stand when people come to me and they say, I took my certification, so I should be getting a job and I should be making $25 an hour. And it's like, that attitude is not going to get you anywhere. You have to put your ego aside. I know maybe you have a master's degree, maybe you were a nurse, maybe you were, in another career and you were making a lot more money. But with medical coding, you don't come in and just like start out with all of the benefits. You have to work your way up. And there's a lot of people that, like you can make 6 figures overnight. And it's just frustrating to see that, because it's not true. It's actually the smaller percentage of folks that do that, and they really hustle and they put their time in to get there. You gotta put your ego aside. If you are expecting to have a work from home job and make all of this money, you're looking at least 5 years of really sitting into roles and positions and, getting that experience, because until you have that, it's really hard to stand out. There's a lot of people that have, 3, 4 certifications and they can't find, that perfect job. So you're competing with a market of people that look better on paper than people that are just coming into the industry. But I love hiring new coders. I love hiring apprentice coders if they're the right people. I don't care about your education. I don't care about, those types of things. I want to know about your soft skills, because I can train the right person to do anything. But I can't train somebody that comes in with this entitled attitude that they have all of this stuff and that's just enough for me to, pay them all of this money. You need to learn and you need to be coachable and put that ego aside, because it's not going to be beneficial to you, especially in the beginning of your career. And if you're a vet, then put your ego aside if you're looking to venture into other areas or kind of move up the career ladder, because I think ego is probably people's number one downfall. And it's something that, from the very beginning of my career, I said, put the ego aside, because it's going to be better for you in the long run. I would say the last pro tip, it goes back to my point about networking being a lifestyle. You need to be leveraging social media. This is the new billboard. This is where people are at. They're consuming content. So if you're somebody that's creative, if you're somebody that thinks of a better way to do something than somebody else, you should put yourself out there. It doesn't have to be perfect. I listened to some of my podcast episodes in the beginning and I'm horrified because they were terrible. They were so bad. Like, Victoria, I know you can relate to this, but
I was on one of those first episodes.
We were willing to suck at it to be able to get better. And nobody's going to make fun of you, or if they do, then who cares? Because you're not the best at something. The fact that you're putting yourself out there and sharing your voice is important. And be you. Do not imitate other people. Do not try to rip people's content off. I've had people say, well, you're like the Tony Robbins of coding. And it's like, that is what resonates with me. That is who I am. That's how I align, my brand. That's not necessarily what resonates with other people and what works for other people. So be you, just be authentically you, because there's too many copycats. There's too many imitators out there. And people can spot that very quickly.
Yeah. It does get frustrating. It certainly does get frustrating. But yeah, I think it's great though to pull influence from people. Like, I love certain influencers and I see even certain aspects of their editing styles or the way that they talk to their audience. And I go, oh yeah, I'm going to kind of pull that element out and implement it in something I do. But yeah, I think it's just so inspiring when you see people that are able to develop something unique, that they're able to have a great spin. There's one girl on Instagram who I think is studying medical coding, and she takes the most amazing, like, colored pencil notes with little illustrations on the side. And I'm like, I should just quit while I'm ahead, because this girl is gonna just take over the entire industry with like these illustrated guide to medical coding or something.
I've seen it. It's really cool. There's those niches, like you're everybody's uniquely talented, and it's a beautiful thing when you see it come to fruition. Like, Victoria, like, you're killing it, girl. Like, I'm so proud of you. And it's because you're authentic. Like, people see that you're real. And so you can't fake that. You can't fake authenticity. You either have it or you don't.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Toni. I really appreciate your commentary. If anyone wants to get a hold of you, what is the best way to go online and get a hold of you if they're interested in following you or getting some more information about your services?
Sure. So definitely connect with me on LinkedIn, Toni Elhoms. My website, Alpha Coding Experts, has all of our information. So the podcast is everywhere: Apple, Spotify, YouTube. And yeah, if you want to connect, I'd love to connect with you, and super happy that, Victoria, you shared your audience with me. And I hope that some people were able to take some helpful tips from this.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Toni. I really appreciate you taking your time out. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you.
Crazy, right? Like, I could work the rest of my career, I think, and never be as much as an expert and as proficient as Toni Elhoms, but it is certainly something that a lot of us are going to want to strive towards. And now we have some things we can think about in order to get there and what it might look like when you become an expert in this field. If you haven't already, I would really encourage you to subscribe and hit that notification bell if you're interested in more information just like this. And definitely check Toni out. All of her links are in the description below. I will see you guys in the next episode, and until then, just keep on coding on.